My name is Dylan Dews, and I will be interviewing my grandfather, William Dews, on the 19th of May, 2005. So, what's your name?
William Dews.
When and where were you born?
I was born 10/24/25 in Ludington, Michigan.
What were your parents' names?
Harry and Eva Dews.
Did you have any siblings?
I have a son and a daughter.
What was life like as a child?
Well, life was kind of rough because I grew up during the Depression. So we didn't have all the things that you fellows got today. You know, we made all our own toys and everything else. So it was a struggle, but we made it.
What school did you go to?
I went to St. Simon's Catholic School.
Did you have any jobs as a child?
My first job was a paper boy. And then I got a job washing dishes from 6 at night until 4 in the morning for 10 cents an hour.
What did you guys do for recreation back then?
Well, we played. We made our own. We made our own scooters out of roller skates and 2x4s and orange crates, and we made our own slide. Did a lot of hiking.
Did you go to church?
Oh yeah, I went to St. Simon's.
How old were you when the war broke out?
Well, let's see. I have to go back. The war broke out in 41. And I was about 15.
Okay. What were your thoughts at that time about it?
Well, I was shocked, you know, with everybody else. And I guess all of us figured that we were in high school. We all figured that we'd be going into the service.
When did you join the military?
I graduated the 12th of June in 1943, and I was sworn in the Navy in June the 21st.
Okay. What branch did you?
I went in the U.S. Navy.
Is there any particular reason that you picked that one?
Well, because all of my grandfather and my great-grandfather were sailors. Your great-great-great-grandfather was a sailor who left Denmark when he was 12 years old and sailed off. So the sailing's always been the family, and I didn't like to walk.
Okay. What was your job or position?
I was a boatswain mate. I drove a landing barge.
Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy that job?
Until they started shooting at us.
What areas did you serve?
I served for a while in the American and North Atlantic and anti-submarine patrol. And then we escorted troop transport all the way over and made the invasion of Okinawa.
Did you miss home?
Pardon me?
Did you miss home?
At times, but most of the time we were too busy to even think about home, really.
Did any events stand out during your service more than others?
Well, several. The first one, I think, was a typhoon that we had to ride out. And the second one, I think, was when we got hit by a suicide plane.
Okay. Did you receive any medals?
I got the Purple Heart. We had 13 men wounded and 3 killed.
Is there anything that you would like to say about your military experience?
Well, I don't think I would want to go through it again, but then again, on the other hand, I wouldn't trade it for anything either.
How old were you when you were discharged?
20.
What was it like coming home?
Well, everything was different. There weren't any jobs. We couldn't find any work, and it was hard settling down after you've been in combat to come back to a regular lifestyle as what we had before we went in. But we eventually made it.
So your lifestyle changed dramatically.
Oh yes.
Okay. Did you have any occupations after the war?
Well, after the war, I sailed for a while on car ferries out of Ludington, and then I went to a trade school down near Plainwell, and I came home and still couldn't find any work. And so I wound up sailing on the Lower Lakers.
Okay. When did you meet your wife?
I met my wife probably in about 1949 or 50.
Okay. What was her name?
Janice Wolf.
What were your kids' names?
Kids' names were Richard and Diane.
Do you have any memoirs from when you served in the Navy?
Well, do you mean good or bad?
Both.
Most of them were bad. I tell you, the one thing I really enjoyed was going through the Panama Canal. That was really pretty. I really liked that real well. But the other part, after we got into combat, that wasn't much fun.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to conclude on your experience?
Well, just that all of us at my age, when I got my age and when we got out of high school, we all went into the service. And we were all pretty gung-ho because, you know, America had been attacked and we were fighting for our country so that you could have what you've got today.
Okay. Thank you for your time and for serving your country.
You're entirely welcome.
Okay, if you can stay there, we do have more questions. I think the man's got questions. Do you boys have?
Oh, question.
Yeah. And still just answer to Dylan when you answer them.
I don't think of it.
Ian, you're coming through here, right?
What was the typhoon like?
Pardon me?
What was riding out the typhoon like?
It was about like that tsunami that you just saw here. We thought maybe we'd go into port, but they made us ride it out, and I was on the destroyer, so every wave we went over, we went through the next one. But when we finally got back into near Bay at Okinawa, all the ships that hadn't went out were sitting up on the beach. So it was terrible. It was like riding out a hurricane.
Were you based on a destroyer all the time when you were in an air attack?
I was on the destroyer all the time. The only time I got off it in a year and a half was one time in Samar in the Philippines. They gave us 2 cans of 3-2 beer and said, enjoy yourself.
What was the name of the destroyer?
Pardon me?
What was the name of the boat?
My ship, USS Rednor, APD 102.
R-E-D-N-O-R-E?
Pardon me?
Spelling of it?
REDNOUR.
When you were in the upside, did you ever see or destroy a submarine?
We destroyed 3 submarines.
Can you elaborate a little more on how you got your Purple Heart?
Okay. You want me to go into a little bit of a story? Okay. All right. We made the invasion of Okinawa, which was, and it was practically no combat at all to be involved in it, and we were making fun of the bigger ships because they were doing undressed whites and stuff, and we were in the Dungaree Navy, and we were. The first thing that happened was we were probably about 3 city blocks when first kamikaze hit the hospital ship Comfort. And then we got the job we escorted the Comfort to Saipan. And of course, the Comfort, being a hospital ship, it was all lit up just like a Christmas tree, which we didn't enjoy that because, you know, we made us stand out. And then we came back and we were on what they call radar picket duty. And we'd pick up these planes when they took off from Kairusho, Japan, and then we'd radio back to Okinawa that there was another flight of kamikazes coming. And in fact, we were off from a place called Aishima, and that's where we were off near the day Ernie Pyle. If you ever heard of Ernie Pyle, he was a famous war correspondent. He was killed off in Aishima, and so the night that we got hit, there was 13 of us got hit, 13 ships. So, and then we came back. You know, we limped back, but our doctor and corpsman were standing right where the plane hit, so we never did find them. Only a cigarette lighter. So then we got back, and I wound up in the hospital in Long Beach, California. I had shrapnel. I had the shrapnel up, but I don't know. I had it for a long time, the piece I had in my leg, but I don't know where it is now. All these years I've lost it, I guess, somewhere.
Were you on deck when you got hit?
I was on a 30 caliber machine gun. And we had what they call 40 millimeters. I don't know if you're probably not familiar with them, but they're a big, they shoot a projectile about this long. And where he hit right down below one of the mounts, I was on the left-hand side, and the 40 was mounted there, and all we had left was the recoil springs. The rest, he hit a davit, which you know what a davit is? The davit comes around like this, and you use it, you swing it out, you use it for hoisting stuff aboard. And we were zigzagging, and when the plane came in, we had him on fire, but we couldn't knock him down, and he had a bomb under each wing. And when he hit that davit with his wing, it swung him aboard, and that's where he hit, right where the starboard quarter, if you know what I'm talking about. That'd be the right-hand rear of the ship.
Did you have any other siblings who were in the war?
I had a brother. I got a brother, and he was wounded in Korea. The first two mortar shells threw dirt on him, the third one hit him. And so there was only two boys in the family, and we both were wounded in two different wars.
I'm going to go back just a little bit further. How did you first find out that war had broken out, and what were your feelings at the time?
I'm not sure exactly. I think we were home, and I think we had the radio on, if I'm not mistaken. But being at that age, you know, I knew that they had been talking in Washington to Japanese, but I didn't. We had, you know, nobody had any idea what was going to happen. I mean, it was a shock to everybody. In fact, you know, they had somewhat of a warning, but nobody paid any attention to it at Pearl Harbor. And in fact, I had two older men that I knew real well. One was a neighbor. They were at Pearl Harbor when it hit. But,
And how did you first learn about that?
Oh, what?
About when Pearl Harbor had been
About being bombed? It was on the radio.
What was your training like, and where did you go for your basic training?
I went to Great Lakes training, Great Lakes, Illinois. And they were pushing us out pretty quick at those days. I think we only had 8 weeks of training. And we took tests, and I was scheduled to be I passed the test to be a corpsman. But then they gave us 7 days boot leave, and when the time I got back, everything was going amphibious. So we all, 100% of us. So we shipped us to Florida, Fort Pierce, Florida. And that's where we did our training with our small boats, our landing craft. And then we came back to Norfolk and picked up the crew, and then went on from there up to Quincy, Mass, where our ship was built.
Can you describe your landing craft?
Well, there's 3 different types. There's what they call a PR. That's a personnel ramp, which is a small. It's got some armor plating on the side, and it's got twin diesels, and it has a small ramp for personnel ramp. You drop that ramp, you know, you can run them right up on the beach. And then there's what they call the LCVP, a landing craft vehicle personnel, which is that would carry a jeep. That's about the extent of it, but most of the time it carried troops, and which is what we had. We had the LCVPs on there. And then we did training in Hawaii for a while with what they call UDT, underwater demolition teams. And that's what we carried. They'd go in ahead of the invasion and blow up the obstacles so that the ships, the landing craft could get in. But there wasn't much training back in those days. There wasn't time, we lost, you might say, more than 50% of the fleet at Pearl Harbor. And so we were really fortunate that we got out of that alive, really. I mean, all of us, with all of the destruction that they had at that time. But, there's still a lot of men down there. The USS Arizona is still a burial ground for a lot of guys.
Have you ever visited?
I've never been back. No, never been back.
Are you active in any veteran organizations?
I am not any longer. I used to be with the American Legion. I was with the VFW, and but now I just talked to a fellow last night, and there's a new one out that I'm going to join. It's called It's All for Destroyer Escorts and Destroyer Men. They're having a reunion in Ludington in next month. But a lot of the guys that I knew and was in the service with are gone. You got to realize that there's 3,000 World War II veterans dying every day. So it's we're becoming a lost cause, really.
Did you ever get seasick?
Never got seasick. That's why I sail. That's why I sail, and I've been some horrific storms on Lake Superior, and the Great Lakes is an altogether different than the ocean. The ocean, you're going up and you're going down like this. The Great Lakes currents come in all directions, which is a lot different than it is. And then, of course, the Lakers, they have twist plates, so they bend like this and then like this. And when you're loaded with iron ore, it's just like filling it full of sand. Is why they wonder why the Fitzgerald went down so fast. Well, if you develop a leak to that, it's just like throwing a stone in the water. I mean, just down you go. But I never got sick. I don't know why. Maybe it was in my blood from my great-grandfather. I don't know. He started out as a cabin boy, and he wound up as a captain. But he was with the old school, the iron ship or wooden ships and iron men. He didn't believe in steamships. He quit when they come out with steamships. He gave it up. But then my grandfather sailed, and then my dad and my uncle, neither one of them sailed, and I was the first grandson. And then when I went back, I started sailing. I loved it, and then my grandfather, he was. Of course, I've got tattoos too, but my grandfather was tattooed to both arms. And when I came home from the Navy with my tattoos, he got the biggest kick out of that. That was funny.
Can you tell us what your tattoos are of or not?
Where are they at?
No, what are they of?
Oh, this one. I think they're pretty well faded by now. I got a mother here and a father here and a hula girl here and an eagle here with the U.S. Navy on it.
What was your first impression of, the ocean? You grew up in Ludington where you were used to the Great Lakes a little bit, but was it totally different to be out on the ocean then?
Well, the way, like I say, the waves are different and the currents are different than they are in the Great Lakes. I think sometimes storms on the Great Lakes are worse than they are in the ocean. And that type of thing. But except for we did a little North Atlantic duty, and that was right in the middle of the winter, and that wasn't any good at all. We'd have to chop ice off everything with an axe. It was so cold that. But then we went from there to the Pacific, where it was, from cold to hot. So, but.
Where were you and what did you think of the bombing of Japan?
Of Japan?
Yes.
I was on my way coming back from. I was home on a sick leave from the hospital in Long Beach, California, and I was on a train when I first heard it. And I got back, and I was just ready to enter the hospital when the war was over, or get out, or go back in again, I should say, because my coming home by train, I also had both my eardrums blown out. So coming home, my ears were bleeding, and I had to go back and get those checked out, and they put me back in the hospital, and I got out for deafness in one ear. But all I can tell you is that we saved a lot of people. We might have killed off a lot of Japanese, but we saved a lot of American lives when they did it. Because if we'd ever had to invade Japan, we'd probably still be there. It's hard. It's how can I explain it? It's similar to what they're fighting now. How do you fight somebody if he and I get into a fist fight? Sooner or later one of us is going to quit. But with the Iraqis and with the Japanese, their life is in the hereafter. They're not thinking about it. These kamikazes already had their funerals before they left Japan, and they didn't care whether they lived or died. And if we fought guys in the caves at Okinawa that we'd throw in hand grenades and they'd throw them out. If we'd had to fight in the country of Japan, we'd have been there a long time, long time. Just like now. As far as I'm concerned, we got another Vietnam. There's no way we're going to win against those people. I know it was a horrible thing, and I wouldn't want to see it happen every day. But it's just like civilians. They holler about killing civilians, but we killed a lot of civilians in Germany. In the extensive bombing that we did of Germany, they killed a lot of civilians when they bombed England. We've just been fortunate that we never had any wars in the United States. Now,
at the time when you went into the Navy, were there any protesters at that time?
No. Everybody was gung ho. We all knew in our senior year of high school we knew we were going into service, and probably didn't study as hard as we should have, because we figured we were going into service anyway. So, but no, everybody that I knew was enlisting. And those that didn't were drafted.
What types of things did you do on your ship for recreation, if you had any time for recreation?
So we didn't have any recreation. When you had any time off, you slept, because you called the general quarters every time we had a submarine contact or anything like that. So we were up. And when you weren't up, we were working on the guns, cleaning and stuff like that. So the only time when we had off, you tried to sleep.
Were you 8 hours on and 8 hours off?
No, we were 24/24, 24/7. No, there was no watch. It's not like it was when I was on the Lakers and that, when you were 4 on and 8 off. You were on duty 24 hours a day. And there's some times when you were up to over 24 hours.
How do you think that your experience in the war affected the rest of your life?
I don't know that it has. I don't know. I don't think much about it anymore, except you know, it brings back memories. When I read about some of these young guys over there now, it brings back a lot of memories. Some are good, some are bad. You know, I guess the only way I could explain it is, you know, there's a, and that pretty well explains it. Everybody looked out for everybody else, which doesn't happen too much in our country today.
I'm curious about your time on the Great Lakers too. What different Great Lakes ships did you
Pardon me?
work on? What different ships on the Great Lakes have you worked on?
Well, when I first started on the car ferries, I was in between my junior and senior year before I went in the Navy, and I was working as I started as a dishwasher, a porter, and a waiter in the dining room, and what they call a plank boy. And then I went in the service, and I came back out again. I got a job back on Ludington at that time had 8 car ferries running, because we carried railroad cars across, you know. And I was only on one particular ship on the Lower Lakers called the SS LaBelle. It was a Hannah line, and we sailed out of Buffalo, New York. But then we sailed to Duluth and for iron ore, and we deliver it to Detroit, Sandusky, Lorraine, Huron, Cleveland, Ashtabula, Erie, Pennsylvania.
And what did you do on those ships?
I was a deckhand on Lower Lakers, and then on the car ferries I started out as like I say, a porter. Then I was an assistant purser, and then I went to back to a deckhand again, then a lookout and watchman, and I was just ready to be going third mate when I met my wife. And that was.
What did you do after that?
I quit. That was the end of my sailing. I went to Dow Chemical then.
What did you do at Dow Chemical?
I was in maintenance.
Before the war started, having your grandfather in the Navy, had you ever wanted to join the Navy?
Well, I never thought much about it before the war, really, to be honest with you. I wanted to sail. I always have liked sailing.
What did your job entail on the USS Red North?
On the Red North,
Yeah.
I drove landing barge.
Now, did you say that was primarily troops that then were landing, or tanks as well?
No, this was an underwater demo team.
Oh, okay.
So did you carry food on the landing barge too?
No. The ship had. The ship was a converted destroyer escort, and if you look at the ship, you'll see that there's 4 landing barges. Sure, there's 4 landing barges, 2 on each side, stacked. Okay, we'll turn it around here. Which camera do you want me to see? You see these are hoists or davits, and the one landing craft is alongside the ship. There's one in one in there, and then the other one sits on top of it, like in a nest. And this is where the plane hit, right here. That's a 40 millimeter mount there, and this is where he hit, right down there. And then there's all the details of where we went all over. Gonna hang on to that, Dylan.
I can't imagine what thoughts went through your mind when that plane hit your ship. You,
Panic. There was nowhere to go. Like the guy says, you can't dig a foxhole in the steel deck. No, at first I knew it was bad. I knew that, and my first impression was whether we were going to sink or not. I guess the thing that bothered me the worst out of the whole thing was I was afraid that if we ever had to abandon ship, I was always afraid of the sharks. Because when the USS Indianapolis was sank, I don't know if you probably wouldn't remember it, but over half of the fellas that had to abandon ship were killed by sharks. That's what bothered me more than anything, I guess. I didn't want to leave that thing as long as it was floating.
Did it list at all?
Oh yeah, but then you have pumps. You started the pumps going and kept pumping the water out again, and then they jury rigged a bulkhead there to keep the water from coming in. It's amazing what you can do when you have to.
What were your commanding officers like on your ship?
I wish you wouldn't ask. We had everybody but the skipper. Our ship was known as the USS Beano because every day over the loudspeaker, we used to have movies occasionally when we were in too dangerous a spot. And every day the loudspeaker come over and say, "There will be no liberty today," or "There will be no movies tonight." So we had to nickname it the USS Beano. And our skipper's name was Roland Hans Kramer. We said they recruited him out of the German army, I think. Oh, it's funny now, but it wasn't so funny then.
do you remember where you were on VE Day?
I didn't hear what he said.
Do you remember where you were on VE Day?
VE Day, we were in the Caroline Islands.
When your plane was hit by the suicide, or when your ship was hit by the suicide plane, did you know immediately that you were injured, or did it take you a while to realize?
I didn't know for a while, except I couldn't hear. That's what scared me. I couldn't hear what was going on. I could see people talking, but I couldn't hear them. But when you're hit so much like that, even today, shock sets in, and the pain don't come till later.
Do you have any other stories? I think there are a lot more.
You could go on all night long.
Any others that you'd really like to share with us?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. What one would you like to hear? We had duty for a while at Okinawa where we had a little generator on the back of our landing barges, and every night it's a place called Buckner Bay. It was named after General Buckner, and this was Naha, which is in Okinawa. And every night we used to have to lay a smoke screen across the whole which is a huge, Buckner Bay was large. And we'd lay a smoke screen in. We had this little generator and two 55-gallon drums of some kind of goop that made smoke. And we hated that because everybody was so gun happy that they were shooting at our own guys, So we hated that duty, and we had it about every other night. We had to go lay that whole smoke screen to trying to hide us from the. But I can't make you believe how some of these ships looked when some of these planes were hit. Some of these ships were hit 2 and 3. I've seen ships where just the superstructure was gone. There was nothing like it except a barge. You'd think it was a barge because there'd been so many of them hit. We lost a lot of ships, a lot of Navy guys, and especially when they started that suicide business.
Did you rescue people from other ships?
The only ones we found were dead. Sorry to say.
Besides laying smoke screens, were there any other jobs on your ship that you really resented?
No, not really. We knew what we were there for, and I guess we asked for it, and we were defending our country. So that you guys could all have the rights that you've got today. I might recite a little poem, if I may. I learned this probably when I was in maybe 5th, 6th, 7th grade. Maybe you teachers might remember it. In World War I, there was a man named Joyce Kilmer. He was killed in Belgium. And while going through his personal effects, they found this poem. And it's entitled, In Flanders fields the poppies grow, that marked her crosses row upon row, while in the sky the lark still bravely singing flies, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago we lived. To you we give the torch, to yours behold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep while poppies grow in Flanders fields. Thank you. I think that's all.
The following oral military history project is a series of documentaries in association with the Lowell area men and women who proudly served and sacrificed part of their lives to preserve the opportunities for all of us to build our businesses and raise our families under a blanket of freedom. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.